When Qin Ziyu woke up from the big bed, it was raining outside, and the velvet curtains were rumbled by the wind. There was a soft mumble beside him, as if he was disturbed by the sound of wind and rain. Hearing the voice, Qin Ziyu turned back and looked at the woman lying beside him. Lu Wuxi slept unsteadily. There are faint tooth marks on the red lips bitten by the teeth, and the curvy eyebrows of distant mountains are slightly wrinkled, like a bouquet of perfume lilies swaying in the wind and rain. Qin Ziyu looked aside for a long time and couldn't help but stretch out his hand, trying to smooth the folds between her brows. Lu Wuxi's eyelashes quivered slightly, as if his slender fingers were just on the top of her face. Qin Ziyu retracted his finger in an instant, then picked up the pajamas next to her, turned his back to her, and put it on slowly. Then he got up, his slender and tall figure paced slowly to the door, opened the door and shouted, "Aunt Hao! Aunt Hao!" The housekeeper came over, and he calmly said, "A cup of black coffee, send it to the study." Aunt Hao nodded. Just about to go down, Qin Ziyu took 2 steps, frowning slightly, as if thinking of something, and stopped her again. "Wait a minute. The peaceful tone does not contain a trace of emotion. I just forgot to take measures when things were too urgent. When Mrs. Young wakes up, you must remember to remind." Lu Wuxi has been lying on the bed until his footsteps are getting farther and farther, and the phone on the bedside table is still vibrating. She connected the phone, and Dr. Zhao's hastily voice rang, "Wuxi, your mother has suffered serious resistance drug reaction. If you don't change the medicine, you have to arrange surgery or chemotherapy as soon as possible, but I am worried that your mother's body will not be able to support an operation and the side effects of chemotherapy. It is just this new imported drug ZERO1, the asking price is too high, so make your decision as soon as possible." Lu Wuxi pondered for a while, then nodded, "I see." Lu Wuxi immediately changed into his clothes, put on his robe and went out with slippers. When his body softened to his fingertips, recovered a bit of strength. Aunt Hao was holding a coffee cup in her hand and was stunned when she saw her coming out. "Mrs. Young." Lu Wuxi did not speak, but took the coffee cup in her hand and walked straight to the study. In the study, Qin Ziyu was sitting at the computer desk typing on the keyboard. Lu Wuxi knocked on the door to come in, and he never looked up at her. Lu Wuxi put the coffee next to him, and as soon as the cup fell, he took it and took a sip. After turning his head, Lu Wuxi was just about to speak, only to find that his gaze was on the file bag on the desk. Flipping through the files, his thin lips pressed lightly, and he didn't even look up to say hello. Lu Wuxi waited by her side until she finished drinking this cup of coffee. She couldn't help but say, "Ziyu." Qin Ziyu didn't even look at her. His well-knotted fingers flipped through the documents casually, comparing with the computer screen from time to time. "Something. Counting today, you have been home for 4 days this week. This month adds up to 10 days. Lu Wuxi tried his best to organize the language. At first it was a bit difficult, and then he said faster and faster. "We got married 5 years ago. Just say at the time, you come back 5 days a month and give me 50,000 yuan a month. If you exceed it, you have to add money. The new book only intends to write 1.5 million words, and it will be completed within 1 year. It is guaranteed to be updated and will not be delayed. If you break your word, you will kill me. I will seal the pen and seal the pen." When Lu Wuxi's last word fell, the document in Qin Ziyu's hand was finally put down. He raised his head slightly, a penetrating light reflected in his slightly indifferent eyes. Lu Wuxi shuddered a little bit because of the cold rainy night. After a short pause, she continued to explain word by word, "Add 50,000 yuan per month. Other times according to the regulations, I will be quiet. Be your wife, I will not ask anything about you, nor will I go out and talk about the relationship between the two of us. In front of Grandpa, I will try my best to speak for you and be a perfect granddaughter. And children." Before Lu Wuxi finished speaking, he saw Qin Ziyu on the opposite side tighten his fingers on the table, then slowly let go, tapping the table lightly. For a long time, a smile appeared on the corner of his lips, clearly smiling, but the expression on his face looked even colder. I will never trouble you. So. Qin Ziyu tilted his body and leaned on the revolving chair. When she finished speaking, he raised his eyebrows, put his chin on his other hand, and looked at her lazily and arrogantly. You mean, if I come back every day, I will be with you every day? Do you have to pay an extra 200,000 yuan a month? Lu Wuxi shook his head immediately. I didn't. Qin Ziyu waved her hand, interrupting her words. He squinted his eyes and scanned her whole body up and down with the posture of picking goods, then slowly retracted his gaze, chuckling disdainfully. No wonder Zhang Ailing said that marriage is a long-term sale. The blood in Lu Wuxi's body was about to freeze. It was like someone slapped her face fiercely, and it hurt so fiercely. She quickly got up and hurriedly walked outside the door. Before reaching the door, her arm was suddenly caught. Then Qin Ziyu pulled hard, her center of gravity was unstable, she staggered back a few steps, her hind legs pressed against the desk. The man's slender and sturdy body slowly approached, a cruel light gleaming in his cold vision. She suddenly realized something, faint beads of sweat appeared behind her, and her legs were a little soft. Qin Ziyu, you don't want money? The man curled his mouth. His voice was like the cup of black coffee he had just drunk, mellow, hoarse, and with a hint of evil black. With a big wave of his hand, he swept away all the documents on the desktop. Pieces of paper flying down seemed like her chaotic state of mind, with surprise, dodge, and a trace of humiliation. Qin Ziyu stepped forward again, stopping her plan to escape. Then he approached slowly, and said something like cold ice, this is too troublesome. Should it be monthly, annual, or for the rest of your life? Lu Wuxi was awakened by a rush of phone calls. She closed her eyes and explored on the bedside table for a while. Her sleepy eyes answered the phone hoarsely. Hey, what's the matter? Lu Gong, something happened to the company. Lu Wuxi held the phone quietly, and after listening to the person on the phone, he nodded and said no back. After hanging up the phone, she froze for a while before turning over. The man next to her was no longer there, but on the bedside table there was a glass of white water and a tablet of antidote. After 5 years of marriage, Qin Ziyu was cautious every time. Either take the measures yourself, or let her take medicine afterwards. Never leave a little chance of making a mistake. She gave a faint smile, pinched the pill with 2 fingers, and swallowed it without hesitation. After washing and changing clothes, Aunt Hao saw her and greeted her politely, Madam Xiao. Lu Wuxi let out Aeon with no energy. The table was already set for breakfast, but she was not in the mood and had no time to eat. In the past, Aunt Hao cooked food, Lu Wuxi did not eat or not, and she didn't care when she ate it, but today she was uncharacteristically, until she changed her shoes and took a bag to go out, she still stood behind her, seeming to have something to say. Lu Wuxi stopped. Aunt Hao, what's the matter? Aunt Hao rubbed the corners of her clothes and said bitterly, Master said, the overnight fee for this month, and the extra money added last night have been put on your card by the secretary. Okay. Lu Wuxi responded casually. Also, Aunt Hao hesitated and spoke again, her voice was as small as a mosquito, Master also said that the antidote must be eaten in front of me. He doesn't want to cause any unnecessary trouble. The words in my face used a strong tone. Lu Wuxi's fingers holding the bag suddenly tightened, and his nails were hard, almost poking into the flesh. After a while, she slowly relaxed her fingers, nodded calmly, and said calmly, You can bring me the medicine. Aunt Hao quickly returned with the medicine. Lu Wuxi took the medicine and swallowed the medicine in front of her. He even drank the water clean. He handed the empty cup back to Aunt Hao, and took out a few pieces of facial tissue from the tissue box next to him, wiped off the water stains on the corners of his lips, crumpled the waste paper into a ball, and threw it into the trash can. Looking at her indifferently, "Is this all right?" Aunt Hao nodded, glanced at her with some worry, and after thinking for a long time, she said, "In fact, madam, master is not like this. If it wasn't because of that." Lu Wuxi said nothing, stepped on high heels and walked out of the house without looking back. When I arrived at the company, there was a quarrel inside. A beautiful woman wearing Chanel's latest suit, holding a Hermes bag, and wearing a pair of sunglasses sits proudly on the sofa with her arms crossed and Erlang's legs, and a person who looks like an assistant standing next to her is her client. Lu Yi, the host of Yanchenge TV station, has recently become popular. The reason Xiao Chen has explained countless times, but Lu Yi's assistant is still reluctant. "Don't think that Sister Yi is easy to talk, and you can fool her. We said that these design plans need to be changed, and you agreed at the time. It's great, what does it look like now when it's decorated?" Xiao Chen's aggrieved rebuttal: "This design proposal has been revised 7 or 8 times, and you signed and agreed to it when it was finalized. Everything went up in accordance with the contract. We didn't dare to neglect at all and did not overcharge. Penny. There are always 1 or 2 customers looking for faults every month, and Lu Wuxi is not surprised. If it weren't for Lu Yi's assistant to say this last sentence, she would never mind. You dare to shirk responsibility? Do you know who our sister Yi is? Qin Ziyu, president of Hanhai Company. As far as Yanchenge is concerned, the name of Qin Ziyu may be even louder than Hanhai. The president of Hanhai Company and the grandson of Qin's parents, with such a prominent background and handsome man, he was born to be the focus of the crowd. Of course, his more attractive place is the countless peachy news on him. The names of the female companions of Mr. Qin can be listed in a long string, including socialites, newcomers, hot dance coaches, and exotic beauties. Now, there is another Yanchenge TV host, Lu Yi. Xiao Chen shrank his neck. When he didn't know how to respond, he suddenly found a person standing by the door and rushed to her like a savior. "Gong Lu, you are here." Lu Wuxi nodded faintly, took the design proposal in Xiao Chen's hand, and walked over without any haste. "Miss Lu, right? I'm the designer of your new house. This is the first time I meet." Lu Yi lifted his chin and looked at Lu Wuxi arrogantly. She just glanced at it, and she was taken aback. She was very busy at work. She received the house a few months ago and didn't have time to take care of it. After she listed her needs, she gave them all to the Lvuan Design Institute. All contact matters are handled by the assistant in the middle. This is the first time I have seen a designer. I have been listening to Lu Gong. I originally thought he would be a mature and stable middle-aged man. I didn't expect to be so young and so beautiful. When Lu Yi looked at Lu Wuxi was also looking at her. She was not surprised at this Qin Ziyu girl companion that suddenly appeared. From the first day I met him, he was such a suave personality. For a few years after getting married, I have been ostentatious outside. Sometimes even Xue Fei would poke her in the head with a finger and hate iron and steel, and blame her for giving Qin Ziyu too much freedom. Anyway, she was once the arrogant and domineering Miss Bai family, how can she be so useless now? So the house she designed was originally a love nest prepared by Qin Ziyu for his new girlfriend? I just don't know who is dissatisfied with the new house, it is Lu Dai, or he. Ms. Lu has any comments on the design? You can raise any comments. Lu Wuxi only glanced at her lightly, then lowered his head to read the design proposal without interest. Lu Yi pursed her lips and said nothing. Assistant Xiao Chen pulled her sleeves. "Lu Gong, Miss Lu meant to remove the load-bearing walls between the living room and the bedroom, and between the bedroom and the bathroom, and then remove the balcony. All the walls were knocked out to make a full-length floor-to-ceiling window. This is not a question of whether we promised or not, it is simply impossible to achieve." Lu Wuxi knew that the living room and bedroom, as well as the bedroom and bathroom were transparent, which meant that you could play with Qin Ziyu in any corner of the house. In addition, the whole floor-to-ceiling windows had, when you sleep in a hug at night, you can see the stars outside. She stuffed the original design proposal into Xiao Chen's arms. No problem, she will demolish it if she wants to demolish it. Anyway, the house is hers, and it's on the top floor. If it collapses, it won't affect me. Even if it's on the news, others will laugh at it. It will only be the host of Yanchenge TV station, and the one you pulled in the married President Qin Da. What do you mean? Lu Yiyi raised her eyebrows, and she, who didn't say a word just now, stood up instantly, like a cat whose tail had been trampled on. A person who becomes a junior, even if he is confident and arrogant, in front of his wife's brand, he will automatically be short by 3 points, and he is even more afraid of others mentioning this identity. Lu Wuxi's lips chuckled with a faint smile. It's boring. If you want to live as you want, just go to build your own villa. Similarly, if you want to straighten up, find a single man without a wife. Host Lu, I said. Right. Since entering the TV station, Lu Yiyi has been going smoothly. Recently, he successfully squeezed out his seniors and climbed into a popular variety show, received several endorsements, and got to know Qin Ziyu. Even the boss of Lviuan Design Institute dare not speak loudly to her. The woman in front of him dares to mock her like that. Lu Yiyi's eyes were sharp, and he stepped on high heels and walked in front of Lu Wuxi. With a flick of his palm, the target was her face. Lu Gong, be careful. Xiao Chen didn't expect Lu Yiyi to suddenly attack, and exclaimed. With a pop, that slap was actually stopped in midair. It was Lu Wuxi, clutching Lu Yiyi's wrist tightly and intercepting her slap. Let go, you let me go. Lu Yiyi tried to break free. After struggling twice, she didn't break free. She vaguely felt that something was wrong, and her delicate makeup was full of surprise. Lu Wuxi's hand holding her wrist was tightly clamped, and he pulled her hard, drawing her a few steps closer, and sneered, Host Lu, slap is not like that. The woman in front of her just put on a light makeup, raised her eyebrows, and her eyes flashed like a fox who caught her prey, cunning, charming, and agile. Lu Yiyi herself is also a beauty, and she has seen many beautiful women in the entertainment circle, but she has to admit that Lu Wuxi's smile is extremely beautiful. But in the next second, a hot slap was slammed on her face fiercely. Lu Yiyi was dumbfounded, as did her assistant, Xiao Chen, and other people in the company. For a long time, Lu Yiyi's eyes widened in disbelief, and he yelled sharply, Do you dare to hit me? How dare you hit me? Lu Wuxi's lips curled up, her left hand even tightly grasped Lu Yiyi's wrist, and snorted disdainfully, So what? As soon as the voice fell, she slapped her backhand again. Snapped. After the slap came down, Lu Wuxi also let go of her wrist holding Lu Yiyi. Her center of gravity was unstable and she inertially took 2 steps backwards until she held the tabletop with her hand before stopping. 2 slap prints on the face are symmetrical and very bright red. No one in the whole room dared to scream, all of them stared blankly at Lu Wuxi, and there was silence. Lu Wuxi stepped on his high heels, condescendingly, and took out a piece of paper next to him, and carefully wiped his hands. It was as if he had just slapped Lu Yiyi in the cheek and his hands were still dirty. She condensed her face, took the design drawings and the contract next to her directly, and she tore it to pieces in front of Lu Yiyi with 2 shishis. If you want to make a complaint or make a claim, it's up to you. I won't take this one. She said, with a mocking chuckle, or, you can go to your President Qinda and ask him to go and fire me personally. So I feel sorry for you, you must be able to. Although all the actors are female 2 and 3, and they are the kind of vixen bad girl who is most disgusted and spurned by people and likes to hook up with the male protagonist. And Lu Wuxi went out from the Bai's house and married Qin Ziyu. Although he is in the name of Mrs. Qin, he is not as good as Lu Yiyi who crawls on the bed. Sometimes life is such a drama, no one knows what kind of plot the screenwriter will write in the next second. She was too embarrassed to go back just now at the company and went to the hospital to pay the fees. The mother was still asleep in the intensive care unit. She stood outside the glass window for a long time, and she didn't even notice the attending doctor walking next to her, Miss Lu. Dr. Zhao. Lu Wuxi turned his head, the worried expression on his face that couldn't be concealed. My mother. Zhao Zihui was wearing a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses with a gentle smile on his slightly clear face. She has not been in good spirits recently. Today, she is still not sober. Lu Wuxi's eyebrows were drooping, her long eyelashes trembling, and she had no expression, but she knew that she must be uncomfortable from her slender neck swallowing continuously. In fact, there is something I wanted to say a long time ago. Zhao Zihui hesitated for a while, and still said, you know your mother's state, it is not easy to persist until now. She suffers herself, her family members are also hard, and it is expensive. It's too big. I have persuaded most people, and many may give up. I won't give up. No matter what, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how much money is needed. Lu Wuxi shook his head without hesitation. If you don't try it, how do you know that there will be no chance? Zhao Zihui glanced at her, and nodded for a long time. Okay. As a doctor, you are willing to spend a lot of money to continue the treatment, of course we are happy. I can't say anything, I can only do my best. When returning to the doctor's office from the intensive care unit, they had to pass the waiting area. Originally, the two people would not pay attention to the TV in the waiting area until the news report appeared in the news report. The name Qin Ziyu, president of Hanhai Group. Recently there was a scandal with Lu Yi, the host of Yanqing TV. The camera shows Qin Ziyu, and Lu Wuxi knows his suit, the same suit that he had returned to the villa last night. He was wearing a black suit shirt. Only 3 of the buttons on the shirt were not fastened. When the camera was swept over, his strong chest muscles were still faintly revealed. When asked about the scandal, the corners of his lips were slightly bent, and his peachy eyes raised a smile. I don't care about scandals or scandals, but for Mr. Lu, such baseless rumors are fatal, right? As soon as the camera turned, when asked about Lu Yi, her face was slightly red, and she solemnly refused. Mr. Qin and I are just friends. Although the two of them didn't admit anything, Lu Yi's eyes waved, and the smile on Qin Ziyu's lips was not fake. The interview soon ended. Lu Wuxi didn't say anything, but the ants who were waiting next to me who were concerned about gossip all chatted. This Qin Ziyu has changed his girlfriend again, right? What girlfriend? He is married, this should be a junior. How many are these? His wife can bear it. I heard that his wife is the right one, just like a rich Hong Kong man, marrying a big wife and sitting on the Diao Yute. The colorful flags are fluttering outside, and the red flag at home will not fall down. Even Zhao Zihui couldn't help frowning. This Qin Ziyu is really... I don't know why his wife married him. Lu Wuxi did not respond, lowered his head slightly, and smiled softly after a while. Then Dr. Zhao, my mother will ask you. What is going on with you and Qin Ziyu? When Lu Wuxi drove back to Zishan Villa in the evening, the mobile bank had just received 50,000 from Shui Fei. I wanted to make a call to express my gratitude, but Shui Fei immediately brought the topic to herself. What's going on? That's it. Lu Wuxi rubbed his eyebrows. She had just drove the car into the garage. Someone had walked over to help her open the car door. Lu Wuxi walked idly towards the house with his mobile phone. Just when he arrived at the door, Aunt Hao greeted him and took the coat and bag. Madam, what would you like for dinner? Lu Wuxi shook his head. He hadn't eaten anything after getting up this morning, but he had no appetite at all. Don't want to change the subject. I've watched the news. Qin Ziyu is looking for a woman again. What kind of female anchor is this time? Maybe the phone's voice was a bit loud. When Xue Fei finished speaking, the ant how in front of him was obvious. Frozen, there was a hint of sympathy in her eyes. Lu Wuxi was a little embarrassed, trying to put on a calm expression on his face, pretending that he didn't care about anything, changed his slippers, and went upstairs unhurriedly. Then what about you now, what do you think now? You want to live like this forever? Let Qin Zihu behave outside and ignore him? He is not good to you, otherwise, how could he get a little money? I won't give it to you. Lu Wuxi talked about his response, speaking of which, I still feel sorry for the 50,000 yuan you lent me. Don't worry, I will pay you back as soon as possible. Xue Fei looked angrily, look at him spending a lot of money outside in the past few years of his marriage. Although everyone knows that he is married, he only knows that his wife's surname is Bai, who is the right Miss Bai from the family. But except for Qin there are still a few acquaintances like us. There is no photo of you outside, and no one knows your identity. Are you willing to be the red flag that never falls in his family like this, one by one with green hats? Even if you want to consider your mother's condition, you have to plan for yourself, right? Lu Wuxi held the phone and said nothing. In fact, she is very grateful to Qin Zihu. Marrying her was not because of affection. Although she has been out there for many years, she has never shaken her position as Mrs. Qin. It was returned to her household every month even though she had obtained the money by selling herself out. But if it hadn't been for the money, her mother would have been unable to survive. And before that incident, he was very good to her. Lu Wuxi was still in a trance, and didn't even listen to what Xue Fei said. Wuxi, a wife is so indifferent to her husband's going out to find a woman, or it's because he gave you a lot of money, as the book says, I always hope to get a lot of love. If there is no love, a lot of money is good. Otherwise, it means that you don't care about him at all. No matter which one, I think it is unwise for you to maintain your current marriage. Lu Wuxi still did not speak. He lowered his head and remained silent for a long time, and pushed open the door of the bedroom that was hidden. I won't tell you yet, I just arrived. Before the word home was finished, Lu Wuxi realized that Qin Zihu had returned and was in the bedroom. Qin Zihu seemed to have just finished taking a bath, and only wrapped a bath towel all over his body. Seeing her come back, he didn't say anything, but when looking at each other, there seemed to be a sharp sword in the dark eyes, as if to see through all of her heart, so sharp that people could not hide. Are you back? The ending sounded upward, using interrogative sentences instead of declarative sentences. How can he come back? Was he dissatisfied with the increase rate last night, or did he vent his anger for Lu Yiyi today? How much did he hear just now? Qin Zihu ignored her, and after a glance, he picked up a small towel and wiped her hair with no interest. The slender and powerful legs have obvious muscle lines, the strong chest is free of fat, and the 8-pack abs with clear contours are the result of regular exercise. The slightly long bangs were strands of water dripping against the full forehead. Not only his forehead, but also the water droplets on his body were not wiped dry, and a water stain quickly appeared on the place where he was standing. Lu Wuxi was taken aback for a moment. Even though she had been married for 5 years, she had come into contact with him very often, but she seldom faced his body directly. His head drooped. I'll prepare a larger bath towel for you. With the bath towel in the closet behind him, Lu Wuxi walked 2 steps along the wall before being stopped by a slender arm. Qin Zihu supported the wall with his right arm and stood slantingly in front of her. Lu Wuxi pursed his lips and turned to walk to the other side. He opened his left arm again to block her way. Qin Zihu tilted his head and raised his peachy eyes slightly. Although his smile was bright on his face, his words were incredibly evil. Why, sorry to look at me? Nowhere have you seen me up and down. Lu Wuxi was not angry either, just raised his head calmly, looked at Qin Zihu's crooked face, and slowly said, if you don't need it, then I will go out first. Qin Zihu looked at her quietly for a while, and his strong upper body pressed down slightly, and approached her. I am so diligent today, do you want to add money again? Wiping my body is included in the extra 50,000 that I gave yesterday. Is it inside the block? Lu Wuxi frowned. If the person speaking was not Qin Ziyu, she would have slapped it. But thinking of my mother's monthly medical expenses of 120,000 yuan, thinking of the 50,000 yuan I just borrowed from Shui Fei, and thinking of the company's boss's roar, if you dare to have another business deal, you can immediately roll up and leave. She took a deep breath, kept smiling, and tried her best to use a gentle voice to narrate softly, taking care of the husband is originally part of the wife. Of course, if you can add a little more money to me, it would be even better. As soon as his words fell, Qin Ziyu suddenly retracted his arms against the wall, and seriously threw away the bath towels around his waist, picked up his pajamas, and changed them. How can this trivial matter bother you? You have to add more money. Lu Wuxi almost vomited blood. Is his young master Qin someone short of money? Among other things, Lu Yiyi's house was probably given by him. Fortunately, after changing her pajamas, Qin Ziyu didn't bother her anymore, let alone ask her what happened today, and went straight to the study next door. 1 o'clock. When Lu Wuxi came out of the shower, the light in the bedroom outside was off. She came out wearing slippers and wiped her hair. She just took off the wrapped bath towel, and suddenly found that Qin Ziyu was leaning against the bedside, staring at herself for a moment. Lu Wuxi's first feeling was to quickly wrap the towel on his body, and blurt out without thinking, "Why are you here?" She regretted it as soon as she finished speaking. He spent money on everything in this house, including her, of course he could be here. It's just that if Qin Ziyu goes to the study, he usually doesn't go back to the bedroom to rest. Today is an accident. Qin Ziyu glanced over indifferently. Lu Wuxi had just finished taking a shower, his skin was fair, and his body was fresh red with a little heat. Her hair was thick and jet black, and her long hair was slightly curled, and it fell wet on her chest. Even if it is tightly wrapped in a bath towel, it can be vaguely seen. Because of the fright on the face, the originally beautiful almond core eyes are slightly widened, and the red lips are slightly open. You can vaguely see the white and dense teeth inside, which is innocent and pure and pleasant. After a glance, Qin Ziyu slowly retracted his gaze, sitting on the bedside board, holding the mobile phone in his left hand, and lightly swiping the fingers of his right hand to turn on the screen. There was a sound of information on the phone, and he tapped his finger flexibly, as if he was talking about something. Lu Wuxi breathed a sigh of relief and immediately found the pajamas, and changed them as quickly as possible. I went to the dressing table next to me, put on moisturizing water, and put on a mask. She also picked up the hair dryer, patiently and meticulously, dried her wet hair little by little, and secretly observed him from the makeup mirror with the corner of her eye. However, after 15 minutes, Qin Ziyu still kept this position motionless, his phone flashed non-stop. It seemed that the chat was more enjoyable. Lu Wuxi frowned, why hasn't he rested yet? When the hair dryer was finished, she threw away the mask again, and slowly applied eye cream, essence, and night cream, hand cream, and body lotion all over the body. I use all the skincare products I can think of, and the movements are slow, just like a sculptor is crafting a work of art. Just when she wanted to take out the massage equipment in the cabinet to massage her face, she was relieved when she saw in the mirror that Qin Ziyu, who was sitting on the bedside, finally put down the phone and lay down. Then she quickly picked up the bottles and cans on the table, moving as softly as possible, without even wanting to make a small sound. The side where Qin Ziyu slept was closer to her, and she deliberately teetered a long way, tiptoed to bed, gently lifted a corner of the quilt, and got in. The room is quiet, only the air conditioner is slowly supplying air. Lu Wuxi lay down on the side of the bed for a long time, suffering from a headache and could not sleep. She has a slight nervous breakdown, unless she is tired, there will be light in the room and no sound will be able to sleep. Turning his head, he saw Qin Zihu sleeping peacefully with his eyes closed, breathing smoothly. After so long, he should have fallen asleep. The switch of the bedside lamp was on his side. Lu Wuxi was brave and supported his body with one hand. He leaned over to his side, stretched out his arm, and wanted to turn off the bedside lamp. The bed was very wide, her arms were not long enough, she had to move lightly to him, and at the same time be careful not to touch his body. When the finger was about to touch the switch, Qin Zihu below suddenly held her wrist, and then turned over. I really didn't expect you to be this way, do everything possible to get close to me, so you just lack money.